So a couple of pieces. Peter will talk 25 minutes. This is a very interactive session, so we ask everybody as part of all my sessions, please come on camera. It's easier, better for the speaker if you can see who he's talking to. Use the chat. Quite often people have running conversations with each other, so use the chat to talk to each other, to exchange ideas. With the questions, put your question in the chat. I'll call on you to ask your own question, but I just like to get them in the order of priority. So feel free to use the chat. And I guess that is it. You have to unmute yourself when I call on you because Zoom has taken away the option for the host to unmute people. So I will mute myself and I'll hand it to you, Peter, and you can do your introduction and give people your background.
Awesome. Thank you, Deborah, on this big day, birthday. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, August 5th. I can't believe we are marching towards Labor Day. It's unbelievable, but it's true. Today, I'm going to talk about Brand You. For those that haven't done a quick check, I am a strategy consultant, build business strategy, brand strategy, marketing strategy for for-profit and not-for-profit organizations, typically purpose-driven. But I do a fair amount of work in personal branding and what I call Brand You. In today's session, at the back of the document in the appendix, there's a page there with some additional resources above and beyond what I'm going to share with you today. A great video by Simon Sinek. If anybody hasn't seen that, you want to check it out from TEDx, and I'll share a little bit about him today. There's some great articles on Brand You by a couple of folks that are highly relevant, so please check them out. Today is all about Brand You, and that's all of you on this call, but it's also about Deborah and I. We are all brands, all of us on this call today. We may not think about ourselves that way, but we are a brand, and we need to nurture and manage and grow the brand, especially if we are about progressing in our career and going to a different place. And so for those of you that are on the phone or on the webinar that are in a transition, it becomes even more salient and even more important to think about, who you are, what you stand for, what makes you different, and what's your competitive advantage. Why should I buy from you? If I'm a prospective employer, that's what you got to be thinking about. What makes you different, and why should I hire you versus the candidate who just came in before or the candidate's about to come in right after. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about how to carve out a process, and I'll share that with you today. We're not going to go too much into the assessment part, more about the building part. If you do have questions later, you certainly can reach out to me. Finally, just as Deborah said, if you have questions, I'm happy to stop every 4 or 5 slides to take a few questions and keep the questions relevant to the topic at hand.
Just let me interrupt for 1 second, Peter. Don't worry about looking. I'll manage the chat for you, okay?
Thanks so much.
Yeah, just let me know when you want the question.
So I thought I'd start with Dr. Seuss, who actually hit the nail on the head. Ironically, the top quote here, really, I came aware of it, in the last week or so when one of the media outlets was actually using this as a framing up in the conversation of all the Black Lives Matter protests in America. And it's really, you couldn't be more perfect. Each and every one of us were born to stand out. So the job with your personal brand as you think about going forward is, how do you ensure that you are standing out from the crowd? What truly makes you different? And the one thing we do know is the second quote. You know yourself better than anybody else, or you should. And part of this process is to dig a little deeper, get under the skin, get under the hood, and see what you're truly about, and how do you eke that out into your value proposition and your story. But Simon Sinek, who I just talked about, has a great TEDx video, how great leaders inspire action. And people don't, his perspective is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So as you think about your brand, don't think about all the features that you have. Think about why you're doing what you're doing. Why do you exist? What's your purpose in life? And then what are the benefits that you can bring to your prospective employer? So you're good at project management. You're good at technical analysis. What does that mean? What's in it for him or her who's about to consider you on the shortlist? Okay, so I'm going to walk you through some of this today, and hopefully we'll bring some of these 2 ideas to life. The process. I know this does seem like a busy slide, and it is, but it really kind of brings together the process of defining brand you. And by the way, the process and the tools that I'm sharing today are the same tools that you would apply for yourself as I apply to large global brands as well. So same tools, same processes, you're just asking the questions slightly differently. So the overall process is just like an hourglass. In the beginning, the first stage that we got to do is kind of figure, where are we? How are we as individuals doing? What are my opportunities, or what are my challenges? And fundamentally, what's my major brand challenge or my major brand opportunity? So we go through a fairly fundamental and rigorous assessment of ourselves. And I'll show you some of the questions. The tool that I use is called the 5 C's assessment. So think about yourself in terms of what is the category that I'm going to compete in? And you want to understand what's going on in that category. Who's my competition? Who's chasing the same job or same position? Or you can talk about a comparatives. If you don't have a single person that you know, you can think about the type of people that organization may be hiring and start to think about the persona or the psychographics of those people that they could be interviewing. Customers, in your context for brand you, think about customers as all your business associates, your bosses, your colleagues, your subordinates, board members, anybody that you connect with and relate to in your business world. Because this is brand you, this is not just about the business world. So the consumer side will be your friends and family. You want to extract data from friends and family and start to see how the issues and opportunities that they see about you, how do they overlap, clash, or contradict the business perspective of you. And then the 5th C is the company, which is yourself. You're looking at yourself. You're doing a self-assessment. Similar questions that you've been asking the customers or the consumers. You're going to get a whole bunch of data here that you'll start to see patterns and create key issues and opportunities about yourself. Fundamentally, you distill it down to one major brand challenge or one major brand opportunity that you need to face as you start to build out your strategy. And then you go out and you start being divergent in your thinking and start establishing clear goals and objectives for yourself, a clear purpose-based vision and mission, your values, really get down to your values tight. And then you get into your brand priorities, initiatives, and action plans and scorecard. You start to map out where you want to be and how you're going to get there. Now, this process can be simple and you can knock it off in a couple of days using intuition, best guess, and informed data. Or you can take a little longer. You can create one-on-one surveys. You can do a survey monkey with former colleagues, with friends and family. You actually have data to use to then analyze, be much more rigorous, and get a tighter perspective on yourself. So you can dictate how deep you want to go, how rigorous you want to be. I think the point here is some thinking is required to really peel back the onion, really see what are the things that you have that you can leverage and help make you competitive and have a point of difference. So this is what a brand you plan looks like. I call it the temple. And the great power of it is everything from a brand perspective and a business perspective, because ultimately you are in a business of yourself. You have it on one page. At the top of the house, we identify your vision, something that really transcends your day-to-day life and raises a challenge for yourself. It sort of sets out your purpose and why you exist. And that's supported by your mission. What is your special assignment to make sure that your vision will come to life? We then come back to the foundation of the house and spend some time on identifying your core values. 3 or 4 core values that you live with, you breathe, and you operate by every day. Those are fundamental to your behaviors, to your belief system. Be aware of them and leverage them in your storytelling. Think about your core competencies. If you're staying in the same category or you're moving to a different category, if you're moving up the ladder or you're moving laterally into a completely different space, you need to understand your core competencies that you need to leverage to help achieve your vision. You need to understand what are the enablers that you have that you can leverage as well to make your vision come to life. We'll walk through the creation of a value proposition. This and the brand DNA are probably the toughest pieces to crack. But the value proposition defines a clear statement or a clear benefit statement that you'll provide future employers or your customers if you're a one-man or one-woman shop. And that starts to drive focus for your resource allocation, for your funding for what you need to do, and how you're going to position and tell a story. And ultimately, your brand DNA. That's really the cornerstone of who you are and what you stand for. What do I mean by brand DNA? Brand DNA is the essence of the brand. It's Disney's magic, it's Harley's freedom, and it's Nike's performance or Volvo's safety. One word or one idea that doesn't change, that really drives everything that you do. And the tougher challenge is to really figure out what your DNA is. For the assessment, I've laid out here some sample questions, what you could be asking yourself in the analysis, in the assessment. In the red, I've just identified, some key questions to share, pop off the page today. But as you start to look at the category, one of the key questions is, as I'm moving from category X to category Y, I'm really interested in this new space. You want to have a pretty good sense of, before you enter in that space, how is that category growing? How does it operate? What are the market dynamics of that space? Understanding some folks who are trying to chase the same position. How are they potentially positioning themselves, and how can I deposition against them or bring clarity to who I am? Understanding a little bit more about who they are and what they stand for. As I talked about through SurveyMonkey or one-on-one interviews, you can talk to some of your business associates and try to get a sense of what do they think of you, your strengths and your weaknesses, your threats and your opportunities. What are your real equities that you can take forward into your brand? Your friends and family, same questions apply to different stakeholders. Do they see that your point of difference as same or different than your business associates? And on the company side, which is your own self-assessment, you would answer the same questions about the strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. You also, maybe there are other professional assessments you've had done on yourself, whether it's a personality test like Myers-Briggs, whether it's a competency test at your through a professional industry association. Those are all inputs to better understand you, the strengths and the weaknesses, and what makes you different. So these are just meant as starting points for questions, but these are the ones that start to peel the onion back and get a better understanding of who you are and what you stand for. So first starting point is a purpose-driven vision. And here's an example of one. To help find and live your true purpose from the outside in. So this is an organizational purpose-driven vision. But you can see this is not describing what one would do or how they're doing it. They're really raising the vision of the organization to a higher level of why they exist and what their purpose in life is about. I love, this is a corporate example, but it's just so powerful for me. Princess Margaret Hospital here in Toronto. In our lifetime, we will conquer cancer. Incredibly powerful, right? Most other hospitals have their vision statement like, we will deliver exemplary care to our patients. Yeah, but that's what you've got to do. That's your job as a hospital. When you're out to conquer cancer, you've raised the ante to a higher level. You've now created a device to inspire all your employers, all your donors, all your researchers. So think about taking your vision to a much more purposeful level. This is an example of she was a former surgeon, a cardiovascular, I think it was cardiovascular surgeon at Sick Kids Hospital. She had discovered through heavy research, about 20 years of research, she had discovered some revolutionary strategies to help manage cerebral palsy in a much more effective and salient way. It was counter to traditional medical practices, but had proven peer-reviewed data to support the thinking. So this doctor became a writer and wrote a book about how parents can better manage their lives with their children who have CP. So one of the first questions we asked her is, what business are you in today? She said she's a writer. And through this process, we actually landed in a great spot. She shifted from being in the writing business. She was no longer a practicing surgeon, but she went into the almost advocacy role. She became in the business of empowering and transforming. That changes your frame of reference of what you do, how you do it, how you make money, who your competitive set is. So think about what business you're in. And try to get broader, try to get benefit oriented. That'll give you a different lens to think about how to position yourself. But you can see how the change here for this author, former surgeon, shifts her game in terms of what she does and how she does it. So there, in a typical brand strategy, there are three key components. The brand DNA, the value prop, and the positioning. For the purposes of today's conversation, I'm leaving positioning out. I have left it in the appendix, so those of you that reach out for a document will certainly see it. I'm going to focus on the brand DNA and the value prop for the balance of this conversation. So the brand DNA is really the core essence and the most succinct definition of your brand. It's the mission and the why consumers, customers, or employees should care. In this situation, it's about, my core DNA is about being creatively strategic. That's who I am. That's what I stand for in terms of how I operate, how I think, both in the professional world and in my own personal world. You then create attributes to help drive focus around clarity around your brand. What's the personality of my brand? So that means how I talk, how I write, should be authentic, thoughtful, and provocative every time. How do I operate? If you think of me as an organization, I'm obsessed about being customer focused, everything I do. Nimble, and I bring a design thinking. For those that don't know, it's a nice little tie into the creatively strategic. I bring left brain and right brain thinking to solving problems. I use empathy as the driver. What kind of relationships do I want? And then products and services. When I put things into the market, What is my criteria? They have to be insightful, practical, and scalable. So this only came to being after deep thinking, after deep research, and put the words down. And what this does, it helps to sharpen my focus to make sure everything I do, I'm on brand. This is the doctor that I spoke about, turned author, turned advocate. She's all about real hope, providing parents and family members with real hopes that if you have a child with cerebral palsy, there is hope that things can get better, that you can make your child live a somewhat more normal life. We created her personality attributes for her when she speaks, when she writes, when she talks, her organizational attributes, the relationships that she has and what type of relationships with her employees, with herself, with the parents, and the kind of products and services that she creates. So every time you put words down on paper, all you're doing is putting a fence in to create it, make it sharper, crisper, and more on brand. So the challenge for this particular author is, how does she bring to life real hope in every time she's interacting with somebody? That's through conversation. It's through behavior. You don't have to be explicit, but it's always making sure you're reinforcing it every time you're interfacing. The second key component is a value proposition. Really understanding what is the clear, tangible results that an employer or a customer could get from interacting with you. And it really starts on 3 levels. At the bottom, we want to define the 4 or 5 functional benefits that I, as an employer or a customer, can get from you. If I'm interacting with you, or if I buy from you, what do I get? A benefit would be, or could be, I get fresh understanding of your brand, people, and the marketplace. So you can see I'm shifting towards benefits here versus features. I'm trying to instill in language some what's in it for me for the prospective employer. If I deliver just on this one benefit, then that prospective employer should feel confident that they have the right data in place using me to help drive their business forward. So we want 4 to 5 functional benefits, 3 to 4 emotional benefits, and then 1 self-expressive benefit. What is the identity that this particular employer has in their head when they engage with the prospective person? They're a focused and inspired business leader. Ultimately, then, you take these benefits and you ladder them up into a statement, but put it into the customer's language, not the internal facing language. So you can see I turned it around from the customer perspective. Peter brings fresh thinking and customer ahas to leading and lighting the board for our new strategic ... I just turned it around. So it's not coming from my voice, it's coming from the customer's voice. If you do that, that'll start to put you in tune to some sensitivities in terms of their needs and their wants, meaning your future prospective employer or prospective customers. Bringing back the author. She provides clear action plans for parents, what to do to help my child. She has resources, tools. She created a global community of both medical doctors and friends and family for people to connect and talk and share their stories about their children or their own pains that they're going through as they're parenting children with CP. And you get highly accessible, relevant resources. So access to that toolbox in the document. But more importantly, the parent gets validation, a sense of being right for themselves and for their children. How do the parents feel? The parents feel empowered. They're righting the wrong. They're zagging to the traditional medical practices of the zigging. Brings back hope. Inspired some of the parents to act and change the way they live. They feel informed. Who is that parent? The champion of my child. They start to take a different sense of identity once they start to see some winning results from that value prop. The value prop, the DNA, and your positioning are all ingredients to help you create your story or your elevator pitch. Because fundamentally, brand you is about understanding who you are, creating a value proposition and a DNA, understanding who you're going to target, and then telling that story in a consistent, relevant, and compelling way. So all of these create into a story that have messaging themes. So wherever you talk, whether you're talking to an employee or an influencer or within the community, you want to leverage the same story or part of the themes that are within that story so that it just creates consistency for yourself about who you are. And there's clarity. It's no different than all the brands out in the marketplace. If we send different signals with different messages, we're just creating clutter or confusion. And so I'll leave you with a framework for my story. Got the elevator pitch down to about 6 or 7 bullet points, but really tying home the 5 or 6 messaging themes that I could dial up or dial out depending on who I'm talking to. For some stakeholders, the whole continuous learning and business success may be more important. At other times, the whole message story may be important. Or for another stakeholder, the whole idea of working collaboratively is fundamentally core to success. If I do some research, I have better understanding of which messages to leverage at that storytelling moment. And that's it. So hopefully you can start to see the value in digging deep, answering some questions, getting some clarity from multiple sources. So it's not just you looking at yourself, but you're getting an outside-in perspective on yourself. And believe me, this is hard work. It's really hard work. And if you choose to do this in 48 hours, sort of the simple, cheap and cheerful method, that's great. That's better than not doing anything. But if you decide to do a survey monkey, do some qualitative interviews, do a little bit of desktop research, that's even better. It's going to take time, but it'll also be painful inside you. And I can't tell you the number of customers that wrote me, "Dear Peter, I hate you. I'm working so hard and I don't like what I'm seeing, yet I love what I'm seeing." Because the people are getting an awakening about who they are and what they stand for. And that helps them pivot and start to point the ship in a new direction. So, any questions, thoughts? I'd love to.
Can I go to John, who posed a question early on about the onion? If you want to unmute, John.
Hi, Peter. Thank you very much. Very insightful, good content there, and it really helps to lay it out. The question from me is actually about getting started in the process. A lot of what you've indicated is certainly self-reflective, but when you are looking for feedback from others, there are many of us who are, shall we say, less willing to go out and talk to others about ourselves. We're very introverted, quite shy about moving forward with something like that. Do you have suggestions on how to overcome that reluctance to be able to get this process moving and gather up the information we need to be able to put this all together?
That's John, great question. And it also, as you're talking, it makes me think of a great book that I'm actually, just finished reading, Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
It's an amazing book, everybody. I recommend it to everyone.
Just to read it. You could probably read it by the end of this weekend. It's simple, it's practical, highly practical. It gets to that core issue, John. It's about being courageous. It's about having empathy for yourself. And so I guess start with your friends and family. You're whether it's a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, or a child. Just hey, little Cindy, hey Billy, you know, and start with them. Start with these. You know, what do you think makes me truly unique? What do you think are the greatest strengths with me? Start with a place that people know you and you trust them implicitly because they're core to your inner circle. They are core to where you've been vulnerable with them before, or they've been vulnerable with you. My guess is that probably could be your family. And then you just, you know, it's going to be tough. It may be tough. But as Brene Brown said, my God, if you can get through this, man, you can get through anything. The power to be empathetic and courageous you'll get more people to draw into you because you've come to their level. So it's John, I guess it's one step ahead of the other. It's a little bit of, you know, like learning how to crawl and then learning how to walk and then learning how to run. And I would just start in a place where you feel least vulnerable, but you are vulnerable. And my guess is someone you really trust, and start from there and go slowly. And if you don't, you know, if a survey seems too mechanical, too big, then start with a small, short interview with someone, you know, a boss that you trusted, or a former colleague who you really trusted, and just start with simple questions. The appreciation of you coming to the same level and sharing things about you, or asking them to share about, there's going to be implicit trust that just comes flowing your way. Helpful?
Thank you. It still does leave a bit of a barrier to try and overcome. All right, and I guess until that first domino falls, we've got a bit of a stumbling block to try and push ourselves through.
Yeah, you know.
Sorry, Peter. You know, John, really, for a lot of people, it's a process of growth and development, right? And that's why I put the suggestion in the chat that you should find a coach, because a coach will work specifically with you, and what you have to do is act and react and reflect. So it's act, reflect, and change happens in the little pieces, right? You don't transform. You are who you are. We can't change who we are, but what we can do is become very aware of the things that scare us and take baby steps. And so when part of what's great about coaching is you take those steps and then you reflect back. So I would recommend that people hire Peter, for example, or hire a coach with this, because this stuff is sometimes very tough to do by yourself. It just is. That's why we get personal trainers, right? We all know we can go online and we can get an exercise program. That's not the issue. The issue is to have somebody with you on the journey, that when you're hesitating, when you're falling, when you're doubting, they're there to help you and to support you. This stuff is not easy.
I guess it's definitely not easy, Deborah. I totally agree. But it's well worth it once you come through the back end. John, I guess the only other thing to add is when I left it was one of Canada's largest communication companies, and I got one of those little executive outplacement packages. And I knew at that time that I wasn't interested in going back into being an employee. I wanted to go out on my own. I was tired of big companies. I was tired of, placating to corporate, blah, blah. I actually wanted to go do something that I actually, be by myself, but I know if I wanted to be by myself, I had to eat what I kill. That means, and the biggest takeaway, this outplacement exercise was learning the power of networking. I hate networking. I hate schmoozing. I hate business development, literally. But I knew that if I didn't overcome that, I'll be eating craft dinner or less for the rest of my life. So if I had to kill a meal, I knew I had to change my mindset turn it around and find positivity and a new outlook in terms of what networking means. And so, yep, I had to start those cold calls and emails and start connecting with people, having coffee with people, telling people who I was, what I was doing, why I was doing it. I actually turned it into a game for myself, and I actually started to enjoy it. Did I have thrills? No, but it became a game on how to win the little point, whether it was just a little coffee and be able to tell my little story and walk away with one other name that I can reach out to for another coffee. And that fright that I had, or the pain going into the whole process, just in having a different light on it, changed my game on how to win. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't learn how to overcome networking and the fears and the hatred I had for that whole process. And so, yes, it's painful, but it'll help you. It really will help you, and you'll feel better for it.
Sarah has a question. If Sarah, you want to ask Peter?
Go ahead, Sarah.
You have to unmute, Sarah. I don't know.
There we go.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Peter. Thank you for this. It's great.
Awesome.
I've done Myers-Briggs. I've had coaches, and it has been very helpful. And to John's point, I just wanted to offer something that helped me. And Peter, I will be doing your deeper dive. But one thing, when I was at the Association of Corporate Grant Makers and business people were coaching charities, we started coaching individuals and charities. And one of the things that we did, which was so easy, was asking people what their 3 words were. Mm-hmm. So if you ask your family and your friends and your business colleagues, what are the 3 words that define you? I found that incredibly helpful. And I got some words that I never knew existed with regard to me, and obviously very helpful and hopeful and positive. So that was just something I wanted to ask you, Peter, if people are hesitant to do the deeper dive, can they do 3 words?
Absolutely. That's a starting point, right? And then just understand what are those 3 words, right? What do they stand for? And so think about where to leverage them. So if one is all about, being open-minded, where does that fit in this framework for you, and how do you leverage that in your own brand? And the other one's smart, and the other one is community driven. If those are the 3 words, yep, that's a great starting point. Then just to have an understanding of, are those one, 2, or 3 of those words really at the core essence of my brand DNA? Or are they about my personality? How I relate to people? Are they about how I operate? So just, get to those 3 words, but just plug them into where you best think they make sense.
I wanted to ask you also, sorry, one of the things I got was, because I was a grantor in the charitable sector from corporate granting, was without prejudice. And I thought that was an amazing description of how my approach to, creating a level playing field. One of the words I think that's kind of overused, Peter, and I wonder if you have a suggestion, is the word purpose, because everyone is on the purpose bandwagon right now. So if everyone's using the word purpose, how do you differentiate yourself if you are a purpose-driven leader? And really, what does purpose mean?
Yep. Great question. And you're right. And I think the whole idea of purpose-driven is going to rise even more as we come out of COVID. Both commercial brands out in the marketplace are going to become more purposeful, and we're going to hear more of it. I think, and that's just, Sarah, what you just raised is another way to create further differentiation. You want to get to that message, but say it in a different way. So, spend some time in a thesaurus and look at the best words that get around to the idea of purpose without saying purpose. You can talk about, why I exist, or, why I'm on the planet. You can find different ways of expressing the same idea with different language. And that just adds further differentiation. So another great perspective.
Thank you.
Sue, if you'd like to ask a question, please.
Me?
Sue Douglas. Yeah.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I can start my video now. Thank you. It's fantastic. I'm going to email you for the deck. But I guess my question was, you decide, I mean, the purpose of this exercise, I believe, is, as Deborah said, for personal growth and development. And one of the side benefits of it is that it helps you define kind of where's the best fit for you. And at the age of most of us, we want to be with like-minded people who have the same values and principles and align with our personal brand. And I almost feel like it's more important to have your personal brand, whether you're employed or not, and then decide that you're committing to that no matter where the opportunities lie. And I had the misfortune once of being recruited into a company where when I got there, I figured out almost within minutes that, their brand, their vision, the way they treated people, their standards of behavior, their values were in complete conflict with mine. And so, I actually did a branding seminar about 5 years ago, and somebody in the audience asked me this exact question, and I answered it, but I'd like to hear what your answer is. Because my answer was get out of there, quit, don't stay. Your brand and being true to yourself is more important than maybe eating craft dinner is an option at that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big believer in life that if you are in a place in your life, whether it is a personal relationship and marriage or whether it is a career, there is no point going on in life if you're waking up every morning, damn, why am I working at this place? Damn, I hate these people. Damn, I'm getting nothing out of it. It's time to move on and make the tough decision. The question I have for you, Sue, we're in the process. Were there not enough signals? What happened to the signals, the early warning signals in your interviewing process? In the pit of your stomach, what happened to those?
Right. That's such a great question because it's a story that I've told over and over and over again. So first of all, it was the biggest learning of my life and my career. And the learning was I ignored the signals. They were all there and I ignored them. And it was only as a result of that experience that I began to realize that being true to yourself, whether it's in a job or in a relationship, is more important. And how now, if I were to see those signals, I would bat them away and run screaming from the room. The signals were all there.
So you had the signals, but why did you go there? Was there something enticing that was pulling you in?
Flattery. He called me his silver bullet. And I said to my friends, you can say you're pretty, but silver bullet's what really cranks my tank. I can help you. I can fix everything, blah, 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 blah. And he poked, he figured out what my trigger was. And, I realized as soon as I got there that, he didn't even have a loaded gun. He didn't need a silver bullet. He wasn't going to pull the trigger. He wanted me to be just like them and not to change anything. So
sounds like someone else we all know south of the border.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Can I go to Margaret, please, if you could ask your question? Thanks, Sue.
Hey, Peter, thank you for the presentation. My question is, could you give us some suggestions as it relates to when we go out to our, our peers, work colleagues, et cetera? What are some of the questions that we might think about asking to elicit some of that input?
And can I just say before Peter answers, check the chat. There are some great questions flying back and forth.
Some questions in the chat. There's some questions right here as well, and these are just thought starters. But as I think, I can't remember if it was Sarah, but it was I think it was Sarah that talked about, one of them could be, what are the 3 words that describe me? Right? Get that down to the essence. What am I? Have them do a SWOT on you and identify on the S, the W, the O, and the T, if they may have 3 strengths, 3 weaknesses, 3 opportunities, to get them to identify the number 1. S, the number one, WONT. Because what you're doing then is you're getting number of mentions. So we're getting some quote unquote quantitative data. We're qualifying quantitative data, right? So you want to get to more mentions and understand what's driving those as well. If you looked under the hood, what would be the number one thing to change or fix? So, hopefully this gives you a little bit of a flavor of between the chat, this, and what I just talked about.
Thank you, Peter.
But the other thing is use the same questions or similar. Certainly they don't all have, let's just say there's 10 questions or 7 questions. Between your customer and your consumer and your own assessment, by the way, if you're assessing yourself, do the assessment on yourself before you hear back from your customers or your consumers. But try to make 3 to 5 of the questions the same. So do the SWOT, 3. Therefore, you're getting, if you get 5 business associates, 5 friends and family, and yourself, you've got 11 data points on the same question. You may start to see some patterns.
Thanks, Margaret. John Reedy, you had first, John. You asked Peter about the 3 C's, right? And then you have your question.
Yeah, that's just the first one was for Peter easy. It was just that he said consistent, compelling, and there was another C, and I missed the other C.
Woo!
Consistent, compelling, and
that's good.
courageous. I don't remember.
It was very compelling, so I wrote it down, and by the time I'd written it down, I'd forgotten.
Well, John, this is recorded, so you can always go back.
All right, and the last one, and sorry, I've done this twice. My memory's obviously going. I didn't realize, and I've got more out of it doing it twice than I enjoyed it the first time. But this has been great. My question, Wilma sort of answered it. I've been in this situation a couple of times where I've gone in and I've been lucky enough through my career to get lots of feedback and I've got a half decent story. But when your client or your potential employer is not as woke as you've got a problem. Because I've seen this where it's very clear from the signals that the potential employer or client has got real issues. But the minute you try and touch that sore point, they back away really quickly. And Wilma sort of answered it before. You desperately know you can help them, but they're sitting there on one hand saying, yes, we've got an issue. And on the second hand saying, well, actually the issue isn't as bad as we're sort of saying.
To me, I would tie that directly back to Sue's conversation about, follow your gut. If you could be talking to somebody who doesn't want to hear the story and is not willing to, the leadership team is not willing to step up and face either the issues or the opportunity, knowing they have to manage some issues to meet that opportunity. And to me, that would be an early warning sign that if you truly want to make a difference in that organization and you're getting pushed back, that's an early warning sign that you may not want, that may not be the best place for you, because it sounds like you come at this with a higher level of purpose. And to me, that's just an early warning sign. So potentially stay away. And that's also, it's really important to, when you think about what business you're in and your value prop, then what we didn't spend a lot of time on today is understanding your targeting. Right? When you think about who do I now want to position and chase after and have conversations about future opportunities, understanding your targets or prospective targets is so important. One of my colleagues at Queen's, Ken Wong, one of the preeminent marketing professors in the country, his mantra is whoever knows their target best wins. And that, the essence of that is so true. Because if you think about it from an 80-20 rule, it's really about who are the 20% that you're going to garner 80% of your revenue. And to do that and extract more money from my wallet, you better know how I breathe, where I breathe, what I like, what I don't like, what I value in life. You got to know more than I'm a white male, plus 55, in a household of plus 200K, living in Midtown Toronto. You have to know what I value, what I cherish, how I behave, who I interact with, what are the influencers to things that I do. Once you know that, that gives you a better entry. First, gives you a better understanding. Are those the folks that really want to chase? Two, it gives you a better entry point in understanding what their potential needs or wants could be. So you're starting a conversation inherently on needs and wants. So my just, I guess my caution is if that's what's happening to you, you know, that may be a prospective target that you may want to leave and move on to find one that is a better fit for your value set.
Thanks.
Just a comment. Thanks, Tina. The 3 C's: category, competition, comparatives. So thanks. For people who aren't watching the chat, both Wilma and Sharon are sharing their emails. They've developed questions for the personal survey, so check the chat, and if you email them, they'll share their questions. Lisa, can you ask Peter your question, please?
By the way, sorry, before Lisa jumps in, I just want to go back to, I think it was John at the very beginning. The other thing about starting with folks that you really trust, and whether that's a family member or a business associate, if you've had a good relationship in the past and they know you're in transition, they're right there to help you. They're going to be honest with you. And that honesty and candor will bring potentially new insights or new framing about how you see yourself. So take that with courage, take that with gratitude and appreciation that they're sharing things that help you move to the next level. I just wanted to add that in. Lisa.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi, it's Lisa. I was going to jump in with my question now.
All right, if you can speak up a bit.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I'll
There you
try to
go.
speak louder. Thank you. Thank you for this session. It's been very helpful. I've taken away a lot of things from your session that will help me position myself better. My question is about networking. I, like you, don't love to network. And in certain situations, you know, when you reach out to network with someone, sometimes you get opposition or, you know, I guess the feeling that the other person feels like you want something from them. So I'm looking for a few tips to be able to network successfully.
You're always going to have a group of folks that are in that game. And, you know, if they don't want to connect or you don't feel like you're, you know, going to get much out of it, then don't bother. But I think part of how you frame it is make this a little bit about them. So aside from the purpose of getting insights for brand you, I took your question, Lisa, in the context of just networking for networking's sake to help me get to better, you know, conversations about a future opportunity and
Right.
less about brand you. Then to me is you know, is really sharing the perspective that you've been in the marketplace, you've been talking to a lot of folks, potentially competitors, potentially comparatives. And so if you're going to go meet with Peter at Company X, you could, you know, dear Peter, do you have some time? I'd love to, you know, I've been talking to a lot of people in your space and would love to share a point of view with you. And so, and two, the point is, at the same time, I'd love to get some information about this category. This is not about a job. This is for information only, mutual information sharing. So now you've neutralized it. It's not about a job. It's just about information sharing. I have something that you may be interested in, meaning some potential insights or perspectives on their business or their category. And so that's for you. Could be a summary of 5 or 6 conversations that you've had last week or the last 2 weeks. It could be that you did that and you also went onto their website and you have a point of view on something. Everybody loves free advice and free thinking. So come in with a point of view, have something to say to them that will bring value to them. They'll be happy. More often than not, they will be happy to share. The second thing I do want to share, and again, to come back to that, my lesson learned about the onboarding. When I started my journey on networking, I also had non-compete. Twice I went through this where I had non-compete with the clients. I went back to my old companies. One of them was, most people know, Cassette Communications. Working there 10 years, the largest Canadian communications company in the country. Just having that on my resume was a door opener. But what I did is I went back to former cassetters. They weren't there when I was there, but we were part of the same family, right? And that just opened the door for me to go have a conversation, meet a new person. We had a shared common employer in the past, but that just opened the door. So it wasn't necessarily a direct perspective for me, but it was a way around to get to new prospects in my space. Maybe they had a lead or somebody they knew that could help me more directly. So then I used other employers and reached out to family, if you would, of those employers. And it was that's the easy way to start. To start with folks that you're part of the same family.
Thank you.
So we've got 2 or 3 minutes left. So Peter, do you have any wrap-up points? Contact information again, if you could put it on your screen. If by chance people miss it, you can always email me and I'll put you in touch with Peter.
I guess there are two closing comments. One is, three comments. One, go back, the more I read about or think about this today, and it was the first question that came out of John, is everybody on this call should go read Dare to Lead. There'll be so much value in that book and ties into personal branding that'll help you through your business life and your own personal life. It's awesome. 2, just don't be afraid. People are there fundamentally. People are there and are there to support you, especially friends and family and colleagues that you trust. So while it's scary to take the first step, someone's always going to be there to catch you. And start with the small guys, the small steps. And lastly, regardless of whether you do this in 2 days or over the weekend, or you take a month to carve this out, it doesn't really matter. A plan is better than no plan, right? And all the data shows, from McKinsey to Harvard to many other publications, the more you think about and work on your plan now, the better you'll be set up for success coming out of this. So once you have a little value prop and a little story, test it out. Test it out on a friend before you go out for the big networking meetings or big interviews, and see what's resonating in your story. You can always change it. Nothing's written in stone. You're not doing a 30-second campaign and buying media. You are having conversations with people as you move on. So once you start telling your story, you're going to see through body language and feedback how people are resonating to your story. Modify it. Once you see what's working and what's not working. Stay consistent. Reach out to me if you need me. I'm happy to help in more ways, in any way that I can.
Peter, I put your email once again, everybody, into the chat if you want to email Peter directly. Thank you, Peter. As always, it was an amazing session. You're brilliant. And everybody really reach out to Peter. He's one of the best in this, and I know he's helped lots of people through this. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate your time on a beautiful August. And stay tuned. The next big idea is the last Wednesday in August, and I will have Jim Estelle on, who is the CEO of Danby. So it'll be an interesting one. So thank you so much, Peter. And I will post the recording no later than tomorrow. So look at my LinkedIn and you can find that.
Thank you, everybody. Merci.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.